Hello my friends and welcome to NBA Rants episode number 3. I'm your host James, my friends call me Tribe, and today we are doing exactly what the Washington Wizards should have done already by now, and we are finding this poor, tortured soul, this tearful, frustrated young star Bradley Beal a well-deserved new home. Because let's be real, his team sucks right now and he needs to move on. Now I have been on the hunt, I have been deep into the NBA trade machine, and I think after all my hard work I have found 3 potential Bradley Beal trades that can actually work out for both sides. But first, it's probably worth clarifying why I'm so keen for Bradley Beal to leave the Wizards in the first place. Now, when I was first considering this, I was torn because while I do feel bad for Bradley Beal and would love to see him join a contender and have some success, I do also feel like the player empowerment era is getting a bit out of control, the art of loyalty is being somewhat lost, and players seem to be chopping and changing teams at will these days. I think it was awesome back in the day to see these long-standing, often bitter rivalries between guys like Kobe, Duncan, Nowitzki, Nash, and plenty of other loyal stars all battling it out for much of the 2000s on the same teams. We were seeing big, consistent playoff rivalries every single season. The storylines, the anguish, the slow, steady, patient build towards glory. And man, I gotta try not to tear up as I talk about this, but Dirk's championship for the Mavs in 2011 sums this up so perfectly. It was the most glorious thing to watch. The loyal star finally breaking through and winning after years of pain, close calls, and not quite getting it done. It was worth more in my opinion than almost any championship I can remember. It was beautiful. And for that reason, I actually find it refreshing these days when big stars like Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, Giannis, and Bradley Beal stay so loyal to the teams that drafted them. It's honestly cool. But, and this is the key here, Steph, Giannis, and Dame, much like Dirk and some of those other stars back in the day, are at the very least on playoff level teams. At least getting a chance to show their skills at the highest level every year, and can at least, even if they're not a contender one season, still convince themselves they're only a piece or two away from contention. They're at least perennially relevant. Now this current Wizards squad on the other hand, and let's not mince our words here, let's not sugarcoat this, they're a ton of pieces away. They're not contending anytime soon, they're not that relevant, and they're just kind of trash. Let's be honest. Now, I may have to make a whole separate video on Russell Westbrook's sudden fall off a cliff and how his career as a star in this league looks to be completely finished, but that Russell Westbrook factor, plus being surrounded by a young, developing roster that just straight up lacks talent, has left Bradley Beal in a pretty depressing situation. It's depressing for him as a player, and depressing for us, the neutral basketball fans, to watch, because who wants to see one of the league's brightest stars waste away his prime on a struggling franchise missing the playoffs? It's not like watching Dirk win 50 plus games every year, not quite get it done, then come back next season ready to compete for a chip again. It's year after year of straight up losing. Now, of course, in 5 years' time, Rui Hachimura, Denny Avdia, Troy Brown, Thomas Bryant, and all these talented young guys could be really good, and so could the Wizards. But right now, they are miles away from contention. There seems to be no quick route to real success for this team, and Beal being there just feels like pure wasted talent at this point. Beal deserves better. Us fans deserve to see him playing relevant basketball, and even the Wizards can finally just cut ties, move on, lean hard into a rebuild, and trade Beal for some great assets to add to their already solid young core. So, with that said, let's trade Bradley Beal. Now, there are actually quite a few good options here because obviously a player with Brad's skill set fits on basically any team. However, after a bit of research, I've narrowed it down to my top 3 Bradley Beal trades, starting with trade number 1, Bradley Beal to the Denver Nuggets. In this trade, the Nuggets would receive Bradley Beal and the Wizards would receive Gary Harris, Michael Porter Jr., RJ Hampton, Zeke Naji, and 2 unprotected first-round picks in 2024 and 2026. And from the Nuggets' perspective here, I think they do this trade simply to create a legitimate big 3, all in their 20s that can grow together and compete for years to come. I truly believe they love Michael Porter Jr., and they think, just like I do, that this talented young kid is going to blossom into a star. But with MPJ, you have no guarantee of stardom, and you have to wait for him to get there. Beal is a known entity. A star, right now. Championship windows are always shorter than they seem, so I think the Nuggets, with talents like Jokic and Murray, who've already led them to a conference finals, should be in win-now mode. A trade like this makes them contenders today, right now, not in a few years' time once MPJ has hopefully made a leap. And come on, just imagine Beal and Murray orbiting Jokic's playmaking and benefiting from the gravity and genius of the Serbian savant. Open shots and easy buckets all day long. Plus, Denver could actually stagger Beal and Murray's minutes so that they've got a dynamic scoring guard on the floor at all times. Now, of course, this trade does not solve Denver's significant defensive issues. That is true. However, once you've locked in a monster big 3 of Jokic, Beal, and Murray, you just know that gritty veteran ring chasers, defensive specialists, and other defensive-minded role players are going to want to flock to Denver and play there. So I see no reason they couldn't make some moves to add a PJ Tucker, Matisse Thybulle, or a Josh Hart type player at some point down the road to balance this roster out. So I love this for the Nuggets and think it would be the most fun option for us fans and a trade that creates another true contender in the West outside the two LA teams. From the Wizards' perspective, if you're going to commit to a rebuild, commit to youth, talented youth. Adding Michael Porter would allow him to instantly get big minutes, grow as a number one scoring option, and maybe reach his ceiling as a scorer quicker. A larger role could unleash this kid, allow him to make some mistakes, learn quickly, and develop his leadership skills at a very young age. And then adding guys like Zeke Naji and RJ Hampton to guys like Hachimura, Avdia, Bryant, etc., plus some picks in future drafts, gives this team a really exciting young core, plus some real assets to build around that should hopefully give this squad some real hope for the future. I for one love this trade and would love to see it happen on both sides. Okay, let's look at trade number 2, Bradley Beal to, oh yeah, we're going there, the Golden State Warriors. This incredibly fun trade idea, which I also heard Bill Simmons discussing on his podcast recently, is another really interesting one that I cannot stop thinking about. In this trade, the Warriors would receive, you guessed it, Bradley Beal. And the Wizards would receive Kelly Oubre for salary purposes, James Wiseman, Eric Paschall, the Minnesota top 3 protected pick in this upcoming draft, one more unprotected first round pick in 2025, and a 2021 second. Now the Warriors love Wiseman, for good reason. This kid has amazing, quite insane physical gifts, honestly, and has shown some flashes of future greatness already so far in his rookie season. But I think they know their championship window is shortening, and with their core of Curry, Clay, and Draymond all aging into their 30s at this point, adding Beal would give them a legit young star and make them a real contender as soon as next season when Clay is back from injury. This would extend the Warriors' championship window drastically. Year after year, Beal could increase his role and take on more of the scoring load as Steph and Clay get older and older and eventually morph into their number one scoring option, with Steph and Clay opting for reduced, more off-ball roles, saving their energy for the playoffs and letting the younger Bradley Beal carry them in the regular season. Steph and Clay are two of the most deadly spot-up shooters ever to play the game, and I think as they age, they'd be willing and able to thrive in slightly reduced roles and let Bradley Beal really take on a leadership role in the offense as the years tick by. With their shooting skills and the addition of a dominant scorer like Bradley Beal, this move would allow Steph and Clay to age very gracefully into their mid to late 30s and possibly extend their championship window for the next 4 to 5 years, which is huge and completely worth it in my eyes. Then hey, Bradley Beal could always dip after 4 to 5 years, still barely over 30, and enjoy the rest of his prime somewhere else. Kind of like LeBron's 4-year vacation in Miami to win a few chips before moving on to a new adventure. And for the Wizards, they get the Minnesota pick, which could be huge, given that this 2021 draft class looks both deep and incredibly talented at the top, with future stars like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Suggs, and Evan Mobley all available. That Minnesota pick could end up allowing the Wizards to find their future star to build their franchise around. Kelly Oubre is largely in this trade to make salaries work, but even him they could likely trade to a contender before the trade deadline and pick up another first round pick to add to the collection. Eric Paschall adds some more young talent and could battle it out with Rui Hachimura for minutes, and then the big piece of this trade is Wiseman. I think Thomas Bryant could develop into being a really solid backup center on a good team, but I still think the Wizards need their big man of the future. Wiseman can be that big man, their anchor, a true young building block. And if they can combine Wiseman with a talented young star guard in the 2021 draft, the Wizards could be set for years to come. While I do prefer the Nuggets trade in terms of a cool location for Beal to spend the rest of his prime years, I must say from the Wizards' perspective, in terms of the package they get back, this Warriors deal might be the best option. Even Wiseman and that Minnesota pick alone would be huge for the Wizards, and I think this kind of trade would lead to some serious optimism in Washington. And finally, to wrap this up, for trade number 3, we've got something a little bit different. Bradley Beal to the Pelicans. In this trade, the Wizards would receive Lonzo Ball, Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Nicolo Melli, and, well, let's just say 5 first-round picks or something similar. Maybe more. In this example, I threw in both the Pelicans and Lakers picks from this year's talented and deep draft, plus 3 more future firsts. Now, of course, this trade could require even more than that, as there is no young player in this deal with the talent or potential of Michael Porter Jr. or Wiseman, at least in my opinion. So maybe you could add Josh Hart or Kyra Lewis too, or even more picks to this, but it would be something like this. The idea here is basically to just spam the Wizards with non-stop picks and young players until they cave, give up, and make the deal, basically. I actually think Lonzo could truly run an offense in Washington, and it would give him every chance to kind of take the keys, reach his potential, and hopefully become a more consistent player. Also, the NBA draft tends to be a bit of a lottery. You nail some picks and inevitably you fuck up other picks. It's just kind of how it works. So having 3 picks in this year's draft, their own, the Pelicans, and the Lakers, gives them 3 lottery tickets, 3 chances to find at least one young star to add to this core and really help develop their team in the future. This trade would give the Wizards a fat cupboard full of assets, plus some instant gratification with 3 2021 picks and a chance to have one of the deepest and most promising young cores in the league. It would also keep them bad enough in the short term that they could likely tank next season too and add more young talent in 2022. Now this might be a slower, steadier rebuild approach for the Wizards, but one with arguably an even higher ceiling in 3 to 4 years' time compared to the other trades we've discussed. Now for the young Pelicans, this is all about fit and finding their ceiling raiser to take them from maybe a playoff team to maybe a contender. They need more shooting around Zion. In my Steven Adams rant video, which I'll link in the description, I talked about the awkward spacing issues the Pels have with Zion, who needs space, but is currently surrounded by Steven Adams, Lonzo, and Bledsoe. Bradley Beal would give the Pelicans a legit big three with Zion and Ingram to build around for years to come. He would add balance, spacing, shooting, and overall firepower and star power to the roster that would catapult their offense to a whole new level. Bledsoe and Adams would still be there to prop up their defensive numbers, and they could add depth down the line in free agency, as many players would want to join that exciting big three to compete in the West. They could even flip Adams down the line too for someone like Miles Turner, who can space the floor and really defend at the center position. Now in contrast to the Warriors and Nuggets trade, this might not allow Beal to become a true contender right away, as Zion and Ingram might still be a bit young to contend right now, but that said, this team would at least be a comfortable playoff team right away with Beal, get to experience some winning basketball, and build pretty damn quickly towards true contention a few years from now in the West. So, there we have it. As you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this hashtag Free Bradley Beal movement. I am keen for this to happen, so please feel free to tweet this to the Wizards front office, because I want to see these trades happen, preferably one of these three, but like I said, there are plenty of options available. I mean, I've seen plenty of Bradley Beal rumors involving the Heat, the Lakers, the Sixers, among other teams, so let me know down in the comments, what did you think of the three trades I'll talk through, which was your favorite of the three trades, and what other trades out there do you think would be interesting for Bradley Beal? Once again, I've been your host, James. My friends call me Tribe. As always, you hitting that little thumb button and subscribing to the channel would help me out a ton. And until the next video, goodbye.